simultaneously on both platforms. Just work with me here. The stand on my phone broke a couple days ago. The stand on my phone case. Everything is just going to hell for me, and I don't got the money to replace it. But that's not what the stream is about. Okay? It looks a little bit blurry on YouTube, but um, that should fix itself once the camera adjusts. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, ghosts and goblins, witches and wizards, vampires and werewolves. It is time for another watch along of The Last Drive In with Joe Bob. Tonight, episodes 5 and 6. Joe Bob is going to be reviewing the movies Deathgasm and Madman. So definitely in for a little bit of a treat tonight. Sounded like the rain is about to start up here in Buffalo, New York. At least that's what it sounded like outside of my window a few moments ago. I could hear the wind kicking up. So quite even possibly a dark and stormy night here in Buffalo, New York. I am prepared. Personally, I love the rain. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are getting all set up here for our watch along. Let me just transition the camera over here for the good people watching on Twitch TV. Thank you, everybody, for joining me here tonight. I believe you can see me. We got the Michael Myers shirt on tonight. Wearing the Halloween shirt. Halloween is around the corner, ladies and gentlemen. You can see right there. I don't think you can see it too good on YouTube here. Just give me a sec. We'll break one of the rules here for viewing purposes. I still don't think they can really see that great. Maybe if I back up a little bit, you can see it better. Hello, everybody. Okay, that's enough of the lights. We got the red lights on tonight. Buffalo Bills won the preseason game yesterday against my boys in Pittsburgh, the Steelers. A preseason victory, 1-1 right now in the preseason. But ladies and gentlemen, we are about to get ready for season 4 of The Last Drive-In with Joe Bob. Again, these are going to be episodes 5 and 6. So thank you for joining me tonight. And I'll let Joe Bob take it away from here. I do just want to say, for the people watching on YouTube, my stand on my phone case did break the other day, so if there's any trouble with the phone trying to balance, I will fix it. Unfortunately, everything is breaking around here and I don't got the money to replace it. But again, if there are any troubles with the phone trying to balance itself out, I'll try to attend to that as quickly as possible. Right now, I got it pretty much propped up between the TV and the laptop here, because this is my little gaming setup where I have my PS5. So hopefully the phone doesn't fall down and nothing else breaks. Again, I can't even afford to get a new phone case or anything, but I'll try to do that in the future.
Whenever somebody says, with all due respect, it means they're about to disrespect you.
Means they're about to disrespect you. And ladies and gentlemen, tonight I am sipping on an Arnold Palmer. Got my half and half here, my iced tea and my lemonade. Little Arnold Palmer. It's not liquor for any of the people watching at home on YouTube. It's just half and half, iced tea and lemonade. One of my favorites.
Nuke you. Call you an idiot. So they're really kind of taunting you in advance with that due respect line. They're saying you're not due any respect. I'm about to show you how much respect you get. It's the same thing when somebody says, do you mind if I ask you a question? Whenever somebody says that to me, I say, yep, I do mind. Don't ask that question, because that means they're about to ask something you don't want to answer. So if somebody says, you mind if I ask you a question? What you should say is, with all due respect.
Okay, so we are going to mute the audio for a second. just so we don't get any copyright strikes here on bitch ass YouTube, because they love to copyright strike shit as soon as you play any kind of music. So that is not going to happen tonight. We will wait for the episode to start up, and then I will unmute it. But thank you again, ladies and gentlemen, ghosts and goblins, witches and wizards, vampires and werewolves, for joining me for another episode of The Last Drive-In with Joe Bob. This is Season 4, 2019, and we are watching episodes 5 and 6 tonight. And it looks like we are ready to begin.
You know how you can tell the difference between Elon Musk, the CEO of Tesla, and an ordinary Tesla owner? Elon Musk will eventually stop talking about his Tesla. Have you ever met a Tesla owner? I never quite got the whole Tesla thing. Is there some connection between multimillionaires and ecological crusades that I was previously unaware of? Do people really buy $138,000 cars so they can save the planet from greenhouse gas?
$138,000 cars, ladies and gentlemen. Now, I do want to add something interesting to that statement from Joe Bob there. Interesting little fact. When I used to work around the Sabres arena, when I used to work downtown for the Buffalo Sabres, I would always have to wait for a little Uber or a Lyft to pick me up. These are $1,338,000 cars, okay? How the hell is somebody that can afford that kind of car working for Uber or Lyft? I just do not understand, ladies and gentlemen. They don't deserve a $5 tip. They don't deserve a tip at all, for that matter. How the fuck are they fucking driving these fancy-ass luxury cars around and working that kind of a job? Just does not make any bit of sense to me. Meanwhile, the ride from the arena back to my house would be like $20, $25, sometimes $30 if the traffic is bad enough, and that's only like a 15, 12-minute drive. And you already got a $1,338 car.
I'm skeptical. I demand to see that fossil fuel imprint, Mr. Tesla dude. Yeah, you just drove from Cape May to Cape Cod without a single gallon of gasoline, but let's see the size of that refrigerator back home, the one where you keep all that kale and chia seeds and tofu and spelt and seaweed and holistic cat food that you bought this morning at the Whole Foods on 7th Avenue. I'm thinking those teak freezer drawers are pulling some kilowatts. But who am I to talk? You know, my 1970 Plymouth Hemicuda has been up on block since 2008 because my regular mechanic, Bubba Barclay of Houma, Louisiana, has been except Alabama.
Joe Bob driving the Plymouth Hemicuda, one of his favorite cars of all time, ladies and gentlemen. More of a Corvette guy myself. Dream car is the Corvette. Also would like a Land Rover, Range Rover Defender. Got my eyes on that. I prefer that over a Jeep any fucking day. I'm also a Hummer guy, but again, all those are out of my budget. Can't afford it. Sold my car a couple years ago for $300 to the junkyard because I desperately needed the money.
No emissions inspections in the awesome state of Alabama. Roll Tide, baby. My Cuda pulls 500 horsepower, still has the original plum-colored paint, gets an amazing 4 miles to the gallon, 6 on the highway. If my Hemi-Cuda met a Tesla on the open road, it'd be like the opening scene of War of the Worlds, where a Martian fighting machine destroys Bayonne, New Jersey. Tom Cruise would have to come assassinate my ass. And meanwhile, we now have an existential threat to the majority of the Tesla owner. They're going to start selling Teslas for a mere $35,000.
A mere $35,000, ladies and gentlemen. Now, if we're talking a little bit more foreign, the dream car is the Rolls Royce. Of course, you know, like I said, me, myself, Corvette, Range Rover Defender. I like a Hummer. Take all that over a Jeep any fucking day of the week. But if we're talking a little more foreign, I do prefer the Rolls Royce. I do prefer the Maserati. Okay?
For people who got into Tesla-dom in 2008, remember the Tesla Roadster? Oh, neither do I. But this must be the equivalent of waking up and finding out that homeless people will soon be living in Teslas parked on the side streets of Beverly Hills. $35,000 is like Plumbers are going to have them. And worse than plumbers, weathercasters are going to have them. There was a day last year when the price of Tesla stock rose so high, it surpassed General Motors, Mercedes, Ford, every other automobile company in the world. And at that moment, Tesla was the biggest car company on the planet. Now, let's think about that. Ford sells 6.6 million cars a year.
My dad, he used to drive a GMC until he got his license taken away for drunk driving. Unfortunately, my mom's boyfriend now drives the 2024 Volkswagen Taos. Taos, Taos. Don't know how you pronounce it. It's German. I'm not a big fan of German cars. I like a little Porsche here and there, but, you know, other than the Porsche, I'm not too big on the German manufacturing. I like American muscle, okay? And besides that, if we're talking foreign, it's got to be a Rolls Royce or it's got to be a Maserati.
Tesla sells 100,000 cars. Now, if you'd like me to do the math on that, that's 1.5% of what Ford sells. Chevrolet sells 4.8 million. Even if you want to compare cars favored by millionaires, Mercedes comes in at 2.3 million. BMW is 2.1 million. 100,000 is not enough cars. Hence the new bargain bin Tesla. And no doubt they'll be opening Tesla boutique showrooms inside Walmart any day now. Because that's another thing about Tesla that's super douchey. I mean, they market it like an iPhone. They have showrooms that are not located in massive concrete plazas out on the interstate like God intended, but are actually placed in high-end shopping malls right between Cartier and the wood-paneled shop that sells ugly $200 neckties from London. And so that way you can window shop while you're going in to get this season's silk cravat. And by the way, the actual key to the car, they call it the fob, looks like a computer mouse that's shaped like a Tesla. So you access the vehicle with something similar to what a 6-year-old uses when he gets his first baby computer. You can press different parts of the fob, do things like back out of a parking spot without getting inside, or open the frunk. The frunk being a Dr. Seuss word they use to describe a trunk that's located in the front of the car. And then once you're on your long-distance Tesla road trip, you'd think they'd have electric car chargers everywhere, like at truck stops and gas stations. But nope. That'd be funneling money toward the outdated, soon-to-be-extinct fossil fuel, planet-fouling, military-industrial complex. So what you're going to do is you're going to pull into a mall or a high-end restaurant or a hotel or a resort. Yes, I said resort, where there are superchargers that work only with a Tesla, no other car, and you can recharge in, quote, only an hour. Only an hour? This is stated with apparent pride by all Tesla owners.
Like I said, ladies and gentlemen, me, myself, the dream car is the Corvette. I also like a nice Range Rover Defender. And I take a Hummer over a Jeep any fucking day of the week.
I don't know about you, but I can gas up at any of 5 million different places on highways and surface roads in well under an hour, even allowing for standing in line at the fake Starbucks or the Quickie Burger King or the Dasani kiosk after buying trucker DVDs starring Jerry Reed with soundtracks by Ferlin Husky on there. In terms of time management, I don't think pulling in at the White Sulphur Springs does much for you.
Since we are talking about Tesla, one interesting fact about Tesla, they actually have a manufacturing plant a little couple of minutes up the road from me, not that far actually. I could literally walk there and back right now if I wanted to. There is a Tesla plant right here in South Buffalo, New York. So we do manufacture Teslas in Buffalo, and I guess that's why they're a little bit more of a popular car here in Buffalo, New York. But again, $138,000. 1,000. Hold on. You would need $103,038 to buy one Tesla, which is completely out of my bank account. So that is why I am not interested in Teslas at all. And the whole electric vehicle thing just kind of seems, a little worrisome right now too, because like Joe Bob mentioned, there's not that many charging stations right now in America. You would need to drive pretty far to reach one. So hopefully you got a backup battery or a portable battery somewhere in that frunk.
And then there's the sales pitch for the Tesla. First they tell you it's named after a 19th century Serbian inventor named Nikola Tesla. Fuck you. Okay, fine. This really wouldn't seem like the era to be celebrating Serbs, since the one they just threw into a Belgian prison for the rest of his life is nicknamed the Butcher. But Tesla is supposedly the inventor of the induction motor, and Thomas Edison, he would be too much of a direct current guy, even though he was an American who did build an electric car, unlike Nikola Tesla. So anyway, they have this nerdy backstory, but then what's the question everybody asks when they go to a car lot? Can this car kick ass? That's what you want to know. And they actually have a great answer to that question. The top-end Tesla can go 0 to 60 in 2.4 seconds, but that's not what they show you. What they show you is the settings menu on the dashboard of your Tesla.
I love when I love the one scene in the Borat movie where he goes to the fucking dealership and he's like asking the guy who sells the cars, the car salesman, he's like, does this come with pussy magnet? And the car salesman is just like baffled by the question. He's like, the car itself is going to be a pussy magnet. Like, it's going to attract females. And then once he drops the price on him, he pretty much goes for the ice cream truck. So, if you guys have never seen Borat, that's like a really funny scene.
Where you can change the power to ludicrous. Remember that Mel Brooks movie Spaceballs when Rick Moranis insists on taking his spaceship to ludicrous speed? It's like they have this hardy-har-har pop culture reference. Only we Tesla owners understand this. Aren't we cool? When you press ludicrous, the Tesla screen fills up with the same hyperspace animation they use in the movie. And then the screen then warns you, ludicrous can accelerate wear on the gearbox, the motor, and the battery. And it's followed by a screen that says, do you want to continue? And then they give you two options. No, I want my mommy. And yes, bring it on. And then and only then can you go 0 to 60 in 2.4.
But yeah, it was always so fucking... It honestly kind of pissed me off when I would have to wait outside of the arena for a ride, and then these Uber and these Tesla drivers pull up in a $338,000 car. $338,000 car. Say that 5 times fast. And then, you know, the drive from the arena back to my house is already like $20-25, sometimes 30 if the traffic is bad enough, which most nights it is in downtown Buffalo.
Not exactly a Lamborghini, you know what I mean? When you ask the Lamborghini guy, does this car kick ass? He says this car kicks more ass than Vin Diesel's last 7 movies. So who is the Tesla designed for? Apparently it's designed for wealthy sociology professors who like to hit the botanical garden on the weekend and binge watch series with their vegetarian wives. Like, they have a built-in sketch pad in the Tesla for bored passengers, I guess. The car makes nerdy jokes. It tells nerdy jokes to you. They have solar roof tiles on the thing. I rest my case, you know. The autopilot directions include the cowbell sketch from Saturday Night Live and an icon that makes your vehicle look like a Mars rover on the GPS screen, because we all need that excuse for the traffic court judge when the autopilot mows down some school children. You know, I was just laughing so hard at that cowbell sketch that I forgot to put the Mars rover remote on safety. Sorry, judge. Standard apps include Slacker, TuneIn, podcasts normally patronized by people who shape their lives around TED Talks, and the car connects to your phone so that wherever you are in the world, you can check the power level and the temperature inside the car, sort of like an infant monitor. And the car comes with a web browser. Yes, that's what I said, but you can't watch videos on it because that would be unsafe. Reading fine print articles about the new panda enclosure at the Shanghai Zoo, on the other hand, will definitely enhance your ride and keep you occupied when you top out on the Autobahn at 155 miles an hour. All of this hilarity makes the Tesla experience similar to driving a giant iPhone. Every hipster's wet dream. You know what? If you truly want to do your part for ecology, A, take the bus. And B, get rid of your fridge, which is the most power-hungry thing in your house. If you
Now, me, that's all I have is public transportation, right? I have to take the bus basically anywhere that I go. Like when I would work at the Sabres Arena, I'd take the bus downtown. And because the traffic is so bad after the game, the buses don't come, right? So that's like my only option to get home is basically call an Uber or a Lyft. And even when I would call them, the traffic was so bad for them, sometimes they would just cancel the ride. I would wait so long. after I would work my shift, I would wait so long outside of the casino that there is no more traffic. So now, not only has Uber and Lyft taken the money that I already paid for, but because people canceled because they don't want to wait in traffic, again, they're driving all these fancy ass cars, but they can't fucking wait in traffic. Now I've lost money, and I don't know when I'm going to get that money back in my bank account, but I'm hoping that the next person that I call isn't going to cancel because I'm down to like my last $10, $15 now in my bank account. And like I said, I basically would take the public transportation. I take the bus to work, but because the traffic is so bad afterwards, you can't fucking find a bus to come and pick you up downtown after the Sabres games. That's just not happening. They go right on the highway instead of actually coming down the roads. So for me, it was either fucking, try to find the money to get a ride with an Uber or a Lyft or fucking walk it. And, I'm pretty sure a lot of you would find that kind of difficult because, walking in downtown Buffalo very late at night isn't exactly the safest thing to do either, but those are the only options that I have.
Read the analyst reports on why the $35,000 Tesla is supposedly going to make the company into an international powerhouse. It says one of the main factors is you get huge tax credits and rebates for people who go electric in Norway. Thing already costs 3 times what it should because of terrifying tax rates and where they apparently love Spaceballs and the cowbell sketch on Saturday Night Live. So the future, my friends, obviously runs through Oslo.
$100,000, $300,000, and $3,800,000 car, the Tesla. Motherfuckers are driving them around here in Buffalo, New York, working for Uber and Lyft. And apparently waiting in traffic is too much of a concern for them.
Who knew?
That's why I don't give them tips, ladies and gentlemen. That's exactly why I don't give them tips. If you can't wait in traffic for like 15, 20 minutes just to fucking work your way up the street to pick somebody up, do you even deserve a $5 tip? Let's be real.
And the future of horror just may run through Auckland, New Zealand. You know what I'm talking about? I'm talking about Deathgasm. Tonight's movie, we have it here, the high-energy party movie with a soundtrack featuring the bands Axe Slasher, Beast Wars, Bullet Belt, Skull Fist, Nun Slaughter, and The Wretched End. This movie is part rip-off Spinal Tap, part rip-off Trick or Treat, part rip-off Fast Times at Ridgemont High, part rip-off Evil Speak, and part rip-off the exploding head scene in Night of the Creeps. And this director might be from New Zealand, but he did an awful lot of late-night channel surfing through the American cable universe of the 80s and 90s. And the result is the old familiar story of the death metal nerd new kid at school who spends all his time drawing pictures of skeletons, shoving hot pokers up the rectum of the math teacher while wearing t-shirts emblazoned with slogans like "Roll the bitch in flour" and "Christian scum die bleeding," which causes him to get sprayed with piss by jocks who also like to kick the shit out of him and rip studs out of his ears. So the answer, of course, is to round up all the losers in the high school and form a metal band inspired by demonic rock legend Ricky Daggers, who conveniently hands him the Black Hymn, guaranteed to turn every person in town into a froth-mouthed zombie who needs to have his head exploded. And when things get gnarly, there's also a white bread cheerleader type who learns to lock and load with the goth army. Sure, we've seen it before, but have we seen it with giant rubber dildo fighting? I think not. Let's go right to those drive-in totals. We have 35 dead bodies, 40 undead bodies.
35 dead bodies, 40 undead bodies.
4 breasts.
4
2
breasts.
vicious beatdowns, 3 fistfights, bra lasering, super soaker piss spraying, projectile blood vomit into the face of a girl wearing a white sweater, multiple throat cutting, Latin demon music, double head slicing, head splitting, head ripping with spinal cord, arm ripping, zombie drilling, axe to the brainstem, face kicking, horns to the tummy, automobile engine head squashing, clown zombie hand through the gizzards, quadruple head chainsaw whirlybird martial arts move, chainsaw through the gizzards again, flying head slicing buzzsaws, stiletto through the mouth, simultaneous electric dildo ear canal stabbing, collateral damage head chopping, guitar lightning, oral zombie sex, demon worship, bloody drumming, bloody eye sockets, blood spewing, blood puking, ear stud ripping, scimitar plunging, gratuitous kiss makeup, gratuitous lesbian warrior sequence with axe, heads roll, arms roll, torso rolls, role-playing foo, power cord foo, siphon foo, electric drill foo, rubber dildo and anal beads foo, beer bottle foo, hag zombie foo, weed whacker foo. Driving Academy Award nominations for Daniel Cresswell as Giles, the Dungeons & Dragons fanatic who was once suspended from school for violating the CPR training dummy, and when captured by demon-worshipping cultists says, "Do you think if we soil our pants, they'll let us go?" Kimberly Crossman as Medina, the co-ed transformed into an Amazon warrioress with a nasty battle axe. James Blake as Zach, the violent founder of the band, whose first video is Intestinal Bungee Jump, released by Crowbar Abortion Records. Stephen Ure as Ricky Daggers, the satanic rocker famous for as Brody, who explains the true meaning of metal while trying to impress a girl, showing her a CD by a band called Anal Cunt, and then plays the black hymn backwards to save mankind. And Jason Leigh Howden, the writer-director for Painting the Town Red. 4 stars. Joe Bob says, check it out.
4 stars.
New Zealand. New Zealand is where they film all that Lord of the Rings stuff, you know. So when a New Zealand actor applies for a job and you look at his resume, all of them say, "Oh yeah, I was Grishnock and Gorbag and Thimble and Grinna. I played all 4 of those." You remember that place where Aragorn and Gimli first encounter the army of the undead? That's right by my house, you know. And so the casting director goes, "Okay, do you have any role I can pronounce?" It's sort of like New York actors with Law and Order on their resume. You got to take it off there. Because the casting directors, they have used all the actors in New York 4 times already on various Law and Orders episodes. So you got to lie about it, you know. Claim, "No, I'm not really the same actor who came in last year to be the Italian ice vendor, or the actor the year before that who was the dead pedophile, or the actor the year before that who was puking cop number 4. No, you must have me confused with somebody else. Happens all the time. I just have one of those faces." But I think the casting directors know that. And they just kind of look the other way, because you need 17,000 actors a week to do any Law and Order show, because they churn those babies out like cheap Teslas. They make those shows at ludicrous speed.
Me personally, I don't give a fuck about fast cars. I don't care about ludicrous speed, especially in my music. I'm more of a luxury kind of guy. Like I said, guys, dream car for me, Corvette, American muscle. I'll take the Range Rover Defender, and I also like a Hummer. I'll drive that over a fucking Jeep any day, especially a Tesla. But for me, foreign luxury, the Rolls Royce and the Maserati. Because I'm Italian, I love my Maserati. First segment break, 20 minutes into the movie Deathgasm.
Okay, I do love that scene where they have to cut off his head a second time to get it right without soiling the Satori rug. What the hell is a Satori rug? It's probably some high-end flooring thing. Like in the trailer here, we have Congolium. We upgraded from Stainmaster. One thing I won't scrimp on is linoleum flooring. You got to have that in the modern world. Anyway, despite the fact that this movie rips off every metalhead movie ever made, it's done so well with so many great one-liners like, "My Uncle Albert was balls deep into Jesus," that you can't help but love it. And I don't know what the music censorship situation was in New Zealand, but many of you will remember that in America in the 80s, we had many calls for the suppression of violent music and devil music and rap music and every kind of music except Debbie Boone music.
Now you hear what Joe Bob is talking about here. He said in the 1980s, there was a recall on all the music that was violent, featured devil worship. In the 80s, they hated any kind of music that would talk about violence, worshiping the devil. This goes from rock and roll to rap music. Nowadays, you know, certain artists can get away with it. It's a little bit more common. But back then in the 1980s, your ass was considered unmainstream if you were talking about violence or devil.
And that campaign was orchestrated by Tipper Gore, wife of Senator Al Gore of Tennessee. And fortunately, we were able to mercilessly mock Tipper and her minions until she shut up and faded away. But I guess New Zealand was even more uptight than we were, because this movie was made in 2015, 30 years after similar movies were made in the United States. New Zealanders live on islands that are closer to the South Pole than Hawaii. So I guess it takes time for trends to get there. The most notable satanic death metal film ever was Trick or Treat. That came out at Halloween 1986 during the heyday of Tipper Gore. While Al was off inventing the internet, she was attacking heavy metal music and rap music through an organization called the Parents Music Resource Center, PMRC, and they called it rock pornography. And she said that recordings were causing teen suicide and causing violence in general and alienating the youth of America from their parents, especially when you played the record backwards. You remember that? And among the artists she cited were a lot of old guard guys like Led Zeppelin, Jimi Hendrix, Jim Morrison, and then The Who, Alice Cooper, Black Sabbath, AC/DC, Aerosmith, Judas Priest, Kiss, Ozzy Osbourne, of course. And
now a lot of the music I grew up on was a lot of those bands. Some of my favorite bands growing up: AC/DC, the Eagles. I love Journey, Iron Maiden. Nowadays, when I make my music personally, it's kind of a cross between heavy metal and rap, hip hop. Also, when I was growing up, I loved Ozzy Osbourne, who was just mentioned a few moments ago. But that was a lot of the music for me growing up. It featured a lot of those artists who just weren't scared of talking about violence or devil worship in their music. And then even, my favorite rap artist of all times, my favorite hip hop artist, my top 5 would be Eminem, Nas, 50 Cent, Wu-Tang Clan. It's Tech Nine. And a lot of those guys, they don't stray away from those kind of topics either. It's just something that I've always loved. It's something that me personally, I consider myself more of a horrorcore artist than anything else because I love horror as a genre. And again, some of my favorite artists in hip hop music are horrorcore artists such as Eminem and Tech Nine. I would even consider Wu-Tang Clan, to be honest. But for me, a lot of my music is even horrorcore, and it discusses topics like that even today in a modern day time and age.
I actually got involved in this whole thing because my nemesis at the time was this preacher named Donnie Wildman, who ran an organization called the American Family Association in Tupelo, Mississippi. And Donnie claimed that he found 15 songs with satanic messages.
I actually wish, honestly, Tech Nine was mentioned a little bit more in conversations with Eminem, because I feel like Tech Nine honestly does everything that Eminem does. Tech Nine has been consistent for so many years. He damn near puts out an album like every single year at this point now in his career. But I always kind of hated to hear people say, well, Busta Rhymes is so much like Eminem. I don't really see their music being that similar, other than they're both like chopper style rappers, like they both rap really fast, which to me also isn't the most impressive thing in music. Again, I'm more of a horrorcore artist, and I actually like to hear stories, and I think Tech Nine tells a lot of stories in his music. You know what I mean? And like I said, if you want to talk about fast-paced or horrorcore or just guys who kind of implement rock and roll into hip hop music, I think Tech Nine is right up there with Eminem, honestly. And I wish, honestly, people would use him in a sentence with Eminem a lot more, because I really don't see the Busta Rhymes and Eminem comparisons all like that, to be honest. That's just my opinion. But again, that's just me.
You played them backwards, including the most famous one is Strawberry Fields. It says, I buried Paul, if you play it backwards. And Revolution number 9 on the White Album. Stairway to Heaven is the one that says, oh, here's my sweet Satan. And so the premise of Trick or Treat, the original movie of this type, is the same premise that they proposed at the beginning of this movie. What if everything Tipper Gore was saying and Donnie Wildman was saying was true? And in the original flick, There's a metalhead rock star who dies and then comes back to life, and he's jumping out of stereos and taking over the minds of impressionable teens and wrecking their rooms when their mother's not looking and killing all the jocks and their crudhead girlfriends. And then he returns to the high school that excluded him so that he can jump on stage and laser the entire school to death with his guitar and pop the heads off some rattlesnakes and try to get some local airplay. And of course, he turns out to be a typically self-destructive rock personality because he lasers his own drummer in the middle of the song. And all right, so Tony Fields played the role of the zombie rocker. I remember this too. The producers gave him an extra $2,000 to do a lot of coke with the band, the same band they use in the movie, to get the right attitude. They used to do that kind of stuff. And he said he modeled his character after Blackie Lawless of Wasp. This movie apparently models their character on Sammy Kerr, the fictional character in that movie. So you've got Blackie Lawless becoming Sammy Kerr, played by Tony Fields, who morphs into Stephen Ure, the actor in this movie, best known as Gormog in Lord of the Rings: Return of the King, portraying a death metal legend named Ricky Daggers in this film. Do you follow that? Trick or Treat also has an awkward nerd protagonist who can only find salvation in metal. That role was played by Mark Price in that movie, better known as Skippy on Family Ties. And the nerd role this time is played by Milo Cawthorn as Brody.
Hello. Thank you for your comment on YouTube. Appreciate you watching. And just for the people watching at home also, so you're not confused, Trick or Treat and Trick or Treat are two entirely different movies. I think the 2009 version has something to do with the original Trick or Treat movie, but again, two completely different movies. I prefer Trick or Treat, so not Trick or Treat, but Trick or Treat. But again, just two entirely different movies for anybody watching at home.
Milo is a native New Zealander. He did a lot of children's TV shows, and then he broke into the big time as Ranger Operator Series Green on Power Rangers RPM. He did a lot of regional theater, which in New Zealand is even less exciting than American regional theater. And then he did one episode of a miniseries, and then he moved to LA to film a movie called Blood Punch, and he did several short films. He burned out on Hollywood, moved back to New Zealand, and he got this plum role. All right, that's enough background on this puppy. Let's get back to it. Roll film. Milo is from Whangarei. Now, if you try to Google it, it's a New Zealand word, so you'll never find it. But it's the town of Whangarei, the northernmost city in New Zealand, which, even though it's the furthest north, it's still south of just about every other city in the world. So New Zealand is just way the hell down there. You don't realize how far down. The flight to New Zealand is like 97 hours, you know. If you fly first class, they actually tranquilize you. They pack you into a sleeping canister like an exotic pet, you know. It's one of those flights where you say, flight attendant, would you please wake me after the 9th movie?
Next segment break, ladies and gentlemen, 37 minutes.
Every metalhead's dream. You slam a few power chords and your music is so awesome that everybody in the whole town starts puking blood. By the way, you probably already know this, but that music video scene, that's a send-up of Call of the Winter Moon by Immortal, the black metal band from Norway. And everybody will be pulling out all their Immortal tracks tonight and debating whether the Northern Chaos Gods album suffers from the loss of Abath Doom Occulta due to creative differences. No, we probably won't. Jason Lee Howden is the writer and director of Deathgasm, and his normal day job, he's a visual effects artist on all those big-budget Peter Jackson movies they make in New Zealand. He's considered a wizard at rotoscoping. The rotoscoping being the process that allows you to take live-action images and blow them up and turn them into animation, or take stuff out or add stuff in. I guess it's an integral part of CGI, like when Martin Scorsese was doing that movie, The Last Waltz, and he had to take a big chunk of cocaine hanging out of Neil Young's nose, stuff like that. That was to reduce grossness, but you can also use rotoscoping to add grossness, as witnessed by this particular picture. So Jason Layhowden had obviously watched Trick or Treat, and he and his producer, Ant Simpson, went out and tried to get every big metal act in the world to contribute something to the film, and mostly failed at that. Like Trick or Treat had Gene Simmons as the Wolfman Jack guy, and Ozzy Osbourne, the man who was the most often accused of taking over the minds and bodies of American young people. He actually had a role as the outraged preacher, talking about how kids are being corrupted by albums like Torture's Too Kind,
Love
and
Ozzy
Do It
Osbourne.
Like a Dog. And so Deathgasm ended up with lots of great metal on the soundtrack, but their efforts to land Kiss or Metallica or Iron Maiden or Black Sabbath or whoever didn't really pan out. They didn't get Axe Slasher, though. Anyway, my only point is that for a guy known for his rotoscope work,
Ozzy Osbourne, the singer for Black Sabbath.
Jason must have had a lot of pent-up frustration, because he goes 99% practical with this baby. He's got blood squibs out the wazoo, although I have to assume some of those exploding heads are rotoscoped.
I also just want to add to it, since we're talking about metal music here. I also love Rob Zombie. Not only do I love his music, but I also love a lot of his horror movies. I think Rob Zombie makes really good horror movies, especially in a modern day and age. Because again, some of the shit that I dislike the most when it's about like ghost and paranormal activity, Rob Zombie is usually the one to create slasher movies and just true like gory kind of really violent stuff. I know most recently he just got done doing the Munsters, and I absolutely love the Munsters because that's a show me and my mom used to watch. We always used to watch Tales from the Crypt, the Munsters, shows like True Blood, stuff like that. So I know his most recent film wasn't exactly the most violent or like a slasher movie or anything. But again, you know, I just love Rob Zombie's music and his movies in general.
And did I just give away that this movie sets the world record for exploding heads? Whoops! Back to the flick, in which Brody and Zach are proceeding to summon the King of the Demons. Exploding heads have come a long way since Scanners in 1981. David Cronenberg, he did the first exploding head on screen. No, I take that back. I'm not going to say that. Every time I say something was the first thing on screen, the social media just lights up like a Christmas tree, and they just nuke me. You know, well, Joe Bob, you think you're so smart, don't you? You know, you obviously don't know about that exploding head in Jean-Claude von Binterhoffen's experimental film, Brain Odyssey, first shown at the Venice Film Festival in 1947. People just love to make me look like an idiot. It's kind of a sport now on the internet, you know. You can accumulate points, you know. Joe Bob frequent humiliation miles.
So just to take a second here, ladies and gentlemen, and if any of you guys are interested in checking out my music, it is all available on Instagram at OVO Demonic, OVO DEMONIC, OVO Demonic. The reason none of it is available on YouTube is because it would again just get copyright strikes, and YouTube would remove that shit quicker than any of our watch-alongs or anything else that we try to do. Even when I try to upload gaming videos, that shit receives copyright claims and whatnot. So if any of you guys are ever interested in my music, like I said, I would describe it as horrorcore hip-hop with a blend of like metal, new metal. Those are my favorite categories and genres of music. So I describe myself as a horrorcore artist. And again, all my music is available at my Instagram at OVO Demonic. We can't upload it here on YouTube because that shit would just get copyright removed. So maybe one day I'll be able to put the music here on YouTube. I just recently finished an album that I worked on from 2022 to 2023, Fall from Heaven. It's got over 30 songs. And right now, I'm currently working on my second album because I want to do a trilogy piece. So this is going to be the second album. It's called Moth to a Flame. And right now, I believe I have over 15 songs for that. I'm almost done with disc 1. It's actually going to be the second album, and the trilogy piece is actually going to have like 3 discs. So disc 1 is almost finished now, and then I'm going to start on disc 2 in just a couple weeks from now. So again, if you guys ever want to check out my music, it's horrorcore hip hop with a blend of like new metal in there. So it's all available on my Instagram at OVO Demonic. At this rate, I mean, I'm pretty sure I got over 50 songs, definitely. I mean, it's got to be over 50 with the first album, Fall from Heaven, and then now with Moth to a Flame. So, pretty sure I have over 50 songs on my Instagram page. Next segment break, 47 minutes.
Okay, psychic girl Abigail, who works at the record shop, they go see her. Why? I know transitions are tough, but come on, guys. Also, who gives a handwritten note to a guy's friend to meet you in the park? Is this 1957? I think you've probably got a texting app on your phone, right? Even if it's a Motorola flip phone from 1996, you can use text. And one more thing, if you're driving like hell through a town full of violent, rabid zombies right after you've killed your best friend's undead dad with a power drill and an engine block, is your first concern really that the hot girl in your math class is ignoring you? The blonde hottie, by the way, is Kimberly Crossman, who was born in New Zealand and became a series regular on a soap opera while she was still in high school. She was in a Power Rangers series. What is the thing with the Power Rangers? This movie is full of Power Rangers people. She was Red in Power Rangers Samurai. And then she moved to LA and became a member of the famous Groundlings improv comedy troupe. At the time of this movie, she was 24, but she passes for high school just fine.
So I think the movie Deathgasm now has the Green Ranger and the Red Ranger. So they're stacking up Power Rangers here in the movie Deathgasm.
Done a whole lot of guest appearances on various TV comedies. All right, back to the film that's always compared to Brain Dead. Don't ask me why. You know, it must be weird being an actor in New Zealand because there's only two types of jobs. You know, Shakespeare in the Park for wages barely above the income of a homeless beggar in West Auckland, you know, and then roles in $200 million movies. So one or the other, you know. But they do make wonderful movies in New Zealand, you know. Jason Leigh Howden, the director of this movie, he did rotoscope and digital paint on 3 Hobbit movies. The Great Gatsby, that was a good movie.
The Great Gatsby is a really good movie. I love The Great Gatsby, the book itself, and also the movie. I definitely prefer F. Scott Fitzgerald over fucking Mark Twain, okay? I'm just gonna say that now, ladies and gentlemen. Fuck Mark Twain. He's a racist. Go read some F. Scott Fitzgerald. The Great Gatsby is not only a great book, but also a great movie. I prefer F. Scott Fitzgerald over Mark Twain as well.
Wolverine, Man of Steel, Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter. We'll probably stop right there.
Next segment break, 59 minutes.
You know, nothing keeps a story alive like battles to the death with your blood relatives who have turned into voracious demons when the only weapons available are giant rubber penises, anal beads, electric vibrators, and a chainsaw. Surprisingly, the chainsaw is the least effective of those weapons. Every time they run out of plot, they just start chopping off heads. An aesthetic theory of film composition that I actually heartily endorse. Let me tell you how cool the New Zealand Film Commission is, though. This movie cost $500,000. Half of it was paid by MPI, the distribution company that owns Dark Sky Films. The other half came from public money from the New Zealand Film Commission's annual horror competition. Now, the way that works is you send them a poster, a log line, and a reel. No script, no named actors. Just tell them your idea, show them your reel so they'll know you're capable of making a movie. And a log line for this movie would be something like, losers band together for revenge on the school bullies, in the process summoning forces of evil that threaten the survival of mankind. I mean, I made that up, but it's basically what it would be. So the producer, Ant Timpson, and the director, Jason Leigh Howden, turned in their log line and their poster and their reel, and they won the competition and the $250,000 they needed to fill out their budget. And this horror competition kind of turned New Zealand around as far as what it means to publicly fund arts projects, because prior to this happening, The only filmmakers that got money were submitting projects about crack-addicted single moms in the projects, stuff like that. You know, they turn their lives around. They encounter a feisty young hooligan who needs them more than that crack pipe needs them, yeah, or whatever. You know those stories, the kind they show over on Sundance TV. You know, those stories that give Robert Redford orgasms. That's what they used to give the public money to in New Zealand. But now they have this horror competition, which is great for Ant Timpson because he produced 2 other films that got no respect whatsoever in New Zealand. The Irrefutable Truth About Demons back in 2000, and Cabin in the Woods, the 2012 film written by Joss Whedon.
I thought Cabin in the Woods was a fucking terrible film. Terrible horror movie.
He also made The Greasy Strangler, that black comedy from a couple of years ago that was co-produced with Tim League of Draft House Film.
I mean, I know we talk about a lot more of the B-movie stuff here, especially with these Joe Bob watch-alongs. But I remember watching Cabin in the Woods, and I fucking absolutely hated it. There's so many other B movies that are actually better than it. And Cabin in the Woods isn't even really a B movie. It had like a Hollywood budget and it had like enough money behind it that it was actually, you know, promoted really well and shown in many theaters. So I don't know.
All right, back to the movie. Another thing about Ant Timpson, the producer of this, he claims to own the largest collection of 35 millimeter films, quote, in the Southern Hemisphere. I don't know why he puts it that way. We know you're from the Southern Hemisphere, Ant. We all know New Zealand is below the equator. But anybody who collects 35 millimeter films is a fanatic. Because have you seen the size of those film cans? You would need every temperature-controlled storage unit in Wellington to store that many films.
I did have a little bit of trouble right there with my laptop. It looks like my laptop actually froze for a second, so I'm trying to start it up here.
And I have no idea where Wellington is or whether it's in New Zealand, really. I just somehow it came Wellington, New Zealand, or whether it's a city. Is it a city? No.
Next segment break, we'll try to like Maori bring everything warriors. Back up and
I know that. Maori warriors
get everything on Twitch going again for the people.
Called Maoris that have lots of face tattoos and they wear loincloths and they carry spears and baseball bats. They're not baseball bats, but they're like these wooden paddle things. What are those things? They carry some kind of wooden weapon that they use for blunt force trauma. And the reason I know about the Maori warriors is they used to go to Las Vegas and dance barefoot in tiki bars. But I don't think they do that anymore. And they shouldn't.
Okay, so now that we got a segment break coming up here, this also looks like it's going to be coming down to the end of the episode as well for episode, I believe 5. I believe 5 and 6 we are watching tonight. So considering my laptop froze here, I'm just going to try to get the stream going back up on Twitch. Thank you once again, everybody, for watching tonight. I appreciate it. Again, we do have technical difficulties here and there. It's not always going to be perfect. But that's just how things are around here. Especially for me. Gotta kind of roll with the punches. But we stay in the fight, damn it. We stay in the fight. So let me just try to get the stream going back up here on Twitch because the laptop did freeze. And I had to do a quick little shutdown just to get us back up and running here. But it does look like we are coming down to the episode with Joe Bob here, episode 5. On the last drive-in. And then after this, we're going to do episode 6 with the movie Madman. And then that will be it for the stream tonight, ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen, ghosts and goblins, witches and wizards, vampires and werewolves, thank you for being here with me. Doesn't sound like it's raining outside just yet. But we are prepared for a little dark and stormy night. I do got my Arnold Palmer here, ladies and gentlemen. It's not alcohol. It's half iced tea, half lemonade. It is just an Arnold Palmer. So do not get too crazy in the comment section. We sip on half iced tea, half lemonade out here. Damn good Arnold Palmer at that. All right. Looks like the laptop is finally deciding to like restart. And I should be able to pull up the Streamlabs in just a minute here, ladies and gentlemen. Once everything loads up, because again, you know, sometimes the speed of light just isn't fucking fast enough. But we are going to get the stream going on Twitch again. Just got to give it a couple more minutes to load up here. You know how everything nowadays is going to take a fucking century, especially when you desperately need it to happen. But how you guys doing out there? Hopefully everybody out there is doing A-okay. Having a decent summer so far. Summer is almost coming to an end, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to be moving into that fall season pretty soon. And here we go. It looks like we finally have some action on the Lenovo laptop. So considering that it froze the stream and I had to shut it down, I will be starting this back up here. And then once the stream is up and running again, we will be good to go. So thank you everybody for your patience. If they're, you know, when you're watching this replay, when it's available on YouTube, you can pretty much just skip past all of this, because this is me just rambling. Until we can get some action here on the Lenovo laptop. But I do like to run my streams simultaneously on Twitch TV and YouTube. So it gives us a little bit more of a viewership option. Gives us a chance to extend to some wider audience out there. And if this damn thing will load up Streamlabs, we will be able to start the stream back up here. Going on about an hour, so we've definitely been sitting here for like 3-4 minutes now. And there goes the TV as well. Have to bring that up. You see the 50-inch TCL over there. Crazy how I've already pressed this icon like twice now and it still hasn't loaded up Streamlabs. I absolutely hate Streamlabs. I do not recommend it at all. Personally, I would be using OBS, but for some reason, OBS doesn't want to run on my laptop. It absolutely refuses to do that. So OBS is out of the question, and Streamlabs at least lets us have some kind of a stream. So I think it is attempting to load up Streamlabs right now, which would be excellent. Thank you everybody once again for being patient with me. Jesus, man, can we get a Streamlabs to load here? But I do have to restart Streamlabs in order to get the stream going back up on Twitch. So just giving it a moment to load up here. And of course it's going to load up everything else besides Streamlabs. Okay, here we go. It looks like we're loading up Streamlabs now. I will restart the stream here on Twitch. And then we should be good to go. Already going on about an hour here on YouTube for our stream. So definitely been sitting here for about 5 minutes now. If you are watching this replay on YouTube, you can pretty much just fast forward through hoopla, all of this hoopla. Once Streamlabs decides to load up any day now, we will get the stream going again on Twitch. Okay, and it looks like it has finally decided to load. So that is a good thing. Let me get us all back in order here. And we will be starting up the stream again, ladies and gentlemen. So thank you for being patient with me. I appreciate that. And let's get it going back on Twitch. And it looks like we are good to go live on Twitch now. So I will do that. My computer also tells me that the rain is coming soon. So it is going to be a dark and stormy night here in Buffalo. And I believe any second now we are going to be live on Twitch again. There we go. We are live on Twitch. Hello, Twitch audience. Welcome back. We had some technical difficulties, but we are back. I apologize for the technical difficulties. As I said, we are streaming on a budget of about $20 fucking. So technical difficulties are to be expected. I appreciate if you guys came back to finish this episode with me. The computer froze. My laptop actually froze. So I had to shut it down and wait to restart the stream. But now that we are streaming on Twitch once again, I will now be able to restart this. And we are basically at the end of episode 5 of The Last Drive-In with Joe Bob. So you guys made it back just in time.
Okay, zombie penis cut off with a weed whacker. I think we have to make the call. And you know who I'm talking about? Melissa Rose, star of Sleepaway Camp, Hollywood mogul, the world's foremost expert on cinematic wang doodles, our resident go-to girl when it comes to anything involving penile distortion. I am calling her now.
Hello?
Felissa, Joe Bob. We're watching Deathgasm, and we're working with Zombie Dick.
Felissa
I know
Rose,
him.
Mangled Dick
No,
expert.
I don't mean that. I mean, one of the principal cast members just whacked off said Zombie Dick with a garden tool.
Tool, yes.
So my question is, first of all, have you personally dealt with Zombie Dick?
More times than you can imagine.
Yes. And secondly, is full frontal New Zealand Zombie Dick disgusting enough to warrant cutting it off?
You know, it doesn't really matter, Joe Bob, because that dick is going to be limp.
You know, I agree. Based on what I know about zombies and traditional notions of their physical capabilities, that dick is harmless, right?
Yeah. It's like having your appendix out. The dick should be eliminated.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, Felissa. You may return to your revels, so.
Don't get me wrong, Joe Bob. I love dick, but that's not a dick anymore.
Okay, well, there you have it. I think it's now time for the stunning conclusion to the Metalhead splatter epic, Deathgasm. You know what I love about the Felissa segments? When women say to me, Joe Bob, you talk about women's bodies all the time, but you never talk about men's bodies. Okay, ladies, you asked for it.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, the conclusion now to the movie Deathgasm. Segment break after the end credits here.
And so Zach, as portrayed by James Blake in his only film role, gives his life for metal. And Brody, portrayed in an equally fine performance by Milo Cawthorn, who doesn't get enough credit for this and is still known primarily as a Power Ranger, has developed the metal cojones to slice Zach's throat when the complicated, confusing, and ambiguous demonology of the movie all comes to a head with the Queen of Darkness, the Aloth guy. It's all too much for me to figure out, but the screenwriting philosophy of writer-director Jason Leigh Howden is apparently, when in doubt, add another zombie. When that doesn't work, explode another head and mix it up with weapon variety. Weapons used to kill people in this movie include an angle grinder, an engine block, a chainsaw, an axe, a weed whacker, a double-ended dildo, anal beads, a pair of vibrators, a table saw, an electric drill, and of course, a bad news guitar. And I'm totally fine with that. The only thing that bugged me about the ending was that Dion and Giles, the two most likable members of the band, the Dungeons and Dragons guys, they get killed. We need them for the sequel. And by the way, when this movie came out in 2015, Walmart refused to take it unless the title was changed. So if you have a DVD, it might have a different title on it. And that title is Heavy Metal Apocalypse. Okay, so much for New Zealand horror. They talk about that like it's a thing. They go, yeah, man, New Zealand horror, Bad Taste, Brain Dead, Black Sheep, Housebound, What We Do in the Shadows, Wormwood, 100 Bloody Acres. We got a lot of horror down here. Except after those 8 or 10 movies, they have now listed every New Zealand horror flick for the past 50 years. So it's not a big country. A lot of sheep. They love sheep. Not in the biblical sense, but you have to go to Greece for that. But okay, coming up next, we're going old school horror. One of the classic haunted house movies starring the great George C. Scott. And I'm sure most of you know that's a dead giveaway what the movie is. But if not, I need to warn you, we're moving from one of the fastest developing horror films ever made to one of the slowest. And that doesn't mean it's not great. It's just, relax, take a sip, pull on a vape pen or something. We're going to ease you into the rest of the night. Okay, time for the old drive-in mailbag, and whoa, Darcy, you look like a great the demon slayer or whatever.
That's exactly right.
Darcy, ladies and gentlemen, the lovely mail girl.
Lately with your ability to stir up the populace.
What do you mean?
All the letters we get are like, we love you, we love the marathon, keep doing the same thing. These letters are giving me diabetes. We haven't gotten a letter from a Baptist preacher or a radical feminist or a vegan in a long time. So,
well, I'm vegan, so maybe I should write you a letter.
You don't eat meat at all?
Or dairy or fish.
That is so fucking California, Darcy.
Yeah.
You wouldn't even eat that lame New Zealand lamb meat that they make, would you?
I would never judge you for eating cow flesh, so don't worry. Here's an actual letter from Justin LaSalle of Denver.
Dear Joe Bob, I had the pleasure of meeting you in November after your talk at the Sea Film Center. I had mentioned that you have been an inspiration to me as both a fan and as an entertainer. As a fan, Monster Vision taught me what it meant to truly enjoy something regardless of what anybody thought. You taught me that being a fan of the goopy and spooky and being intellectual are not mutually exclusive. Something hugely inspiring to a young kid who couldn't understand why everybody in his family couldn't see the splendor in his chosen cinematic vices. As I became more mature, I reconnected with your work through your writing and rewatching my favorite Monster Vision bumpers that I had downloaded or found on YouTube. As an entertainer that puts forth a separate identity from my private identity, I greatly admire. I hope we didn't give away his private identity. We just said his name. I greatly admire how you've done so with Joe Bob. I'll be promoting your show as a fan on the Axe Slasher official social media channels. Oh man, it's the Axe Slasher guy.
Yeah.
It's Professor Pizza. You remember that guy?
Yeah,
Remember
of
he
course.
was Axe Slasher, the band on the Deathgasm soundtrack.
Yes.
You know, we've met him. So cheers and thank you for doing what you do, Professor Pizza. This is awesome. So even though it's a New Zealand movie, they use this Denver metal band with a great name, by the way, Axe Slasher. And the lead singer for Axe Slasher watches us.
I know. So weird.
Yeah.
So awesome.
We were at the Artsy Fartsy Film Festival in Denver. People were there to see Slovakian epics and shit. And they let me do my little redneck show among the art stuff.
It was so cool.
We're gonna have to do some joint promotions with Axe Slasher though. That's more my people.
Like what?
I don't know, slasher hats. I don't know. I'll think of something.
The hell's a slasher hat?
I don't know. Husband and wife go to a marriage counselor after 15 years of marriage. Marriage counselor asks him what the problem is, and the wife goes into this tirade. She lists every problem they've ever had over the last 15 years of been married. She goes on and on and on and on and on. Finally, the counselor gets up, he goes around the desk, he embraces the woman, and he kisses her passionately. And she shuts up, and she sits there quietly. She's in a daze. And the counselor turns to the husband, and he says, "That is what your wife needs at least 3 times a week. Can you do that?" The husband thinks for a minute, and then he says, "Well, I can drop her off here on Mondays and Wednesdays, but I can't on Fridays. I play golf."
Okay.
Mondays and Wednesdays, but I can't on Fridays. I play golf.
So that is it for episode 5, ladies and gentlemen. We are about to get into episode 6 right now. So thank you for tuning in and watching. We are going to take a quick 1 minute and a half break, and then we will be right back. Now, one thing that I do want to show here to all the people watching on YouTube, because I think the people at YouTube are kind of curious of what the room kind of looks like during these streams. We'll turn on the light for a second. Here, I have my setup. You can see. Hopefully you can see, maybe. But there's the laptop. There's the PS5 back there. We got some other stuff on the wall. Got my Max poster from Maximilian Dude. So this is kind of what the room looks like when we're doing a normal stream. We got dragon tanks over here. Don't have any bearded dragons yet, but hopefully one day I'll be able to afford to have them again. We got a little bit of a arsenal going on over here. Knives given to me from my uncle who passed away. We also have some swords over there on the wall. So I think people kind of just get curious of what the room looks like when we do a live stream. This is it. But there you go. We just got stuff laying around, stuff over here, like a little bit of shoe collection. I don't know how good you guys can actually see this stuff, but hopefully it's all coming out. So there you go. We got the lights. Me and my Marvin the Martian hat. I love this hat. There's our Fallout lamp. The mushroom cloud. And hopefully you guys can see some of them shoe collection down there right now. I got the LeBrons and I got the KDs. Rocking those for this year. There's the hat. Take a little bit of a better look at it. Here's the shirt. Those are what we wear. Those are all my necklaces. Got the wolf. Got the tomahawk. Got my opal cross. I don't know how good you can see the opal cross. There you go. That's a little bit better. But that's the shirt. And this is pretty much what the room looks like during a stream. Here's our chair. I love this chair. GT player. It's excellent for all the streams. So there you go. It's a very nice chair, honestly. It should be. It costs like $300, but I got it as a present. So personally, I didn't buy it, but it was gifted to me, and I love it. But yeah, there's our little setup where we do everything on Twitch. There's the laptop and stuff back there, PS5, all that good stuff. Don't know how good you can really see the PS5, but it's back there. It's behind all this mess of stuff. So that's just a little room tour. We will be right back, ladies and gentlemen. And like I said, we're not sipping on alcohol. It's only Arnold Palmer. Don't get your panties in a bunch. We got the half and half, iced tea and lemonade. So there you go. We will take like a 1.5, 2 minute break here. I just want you to see the setup and what everything looks like when we are streaming. There you go. You can see the PS5 a little bit better there. I always have it standing up. I don't like to lay my PS5 down, but we will be right back. So let's make sure that the TV, the 50-inch TCL, is still in the shot. It is. And we will be right back, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to finish up the episode kind of quickly since we had some technical difficulties over here on Twitch. Laptop froze. Had to shut down the computer. Had to restart it back up. Like I said, ladies and gentlemen, we are on a budget of about $20 here. So technical difficulties are to be expected. And I do apologize for the technical difficulties. But we will be right back to finish episode 6 of The Last Drive-In, Season 4, 2019, with Joe Bob in just a couple minutes. Hopefully you guys got some Arnold Palmer. Hopefully you guys are sipping on something nice. We got the half and half. All the people watching on Twitch, there you go. Get yourself some popcorn. Get yourself some ice cream. We'll be right back. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, ghosts and goblins, witches and wizards, vampires and werewolves, we are back. And we are about to finish our watch along with Joe Bob. The Last Drive-In, Season 4, 2019. We're about to watch Episode 6. He's going to talk about the movie Madman. As I said before, I do apologize for the technical difficulties with the stream over on Twitch. The laptop froze for a little bit. Had to shut it down. Wait for it to restart back up. So right now, We are live again on Twitch TV and YouTube simultaneously, streaming this episode. Got myself a little bit of candy here. Airheads Taffy. I do love my Airheads. Gotta have some candy when you're at the drive-in. This is the mystery flavor, so I'll tell you what it tastes like in a second. But we are about to finish our stream here after this episode, so thank you for being here with me tonight. And the rain is also supposed to start up tonight. So pretty dark and stormy night here in Buffalo, New York as well. Perfect for some horror movies.
Have you ever been to Switzerland? Most beautiful farms in the world. Fences are beautiful, barns are beautiful, the cows are beautiful. They got those giant cows with the bells. What do you call those? Simmentals. The mountains are beautiful, lakes are beautiful, people are beautiful. How can Roger Federer...
Honestly, this mystery Airhead, it tastes like a cross between orange and cherry. But it tastes like both orange and cherry.
be that good looking and be the best tennis player in the world? And if you ask them in Switzerland, if I moved to this little picture postcard village in the Alps and bought me a house and a few Simmentals and I started selling my dairy to the cheesemakers, how long would it take before they looked at me as a local? The answer will be, about 400 years. Now, Texas, on the other hand, we're not beautiful people as a rule. But if you ask the question, if I moved to this little pissant hardscrabble crossroads town with the broken fences and the dirty ditches and the rundown motel, and I bought me a few polled Herefords, maybe some Brangus bulls, and I ran a little commercial herd and drove them to the feedlot in Amarillo twice a year, how long would it take before they looked at me as a local? The answer will be, about 4 minutes. That's if you have a Yankee accent. Otherwise, 2 minutes.
You know I got the Yankee accent, ladies and gentlemen. Living out here in New York, Buffalo to be more specific. Western New York, Buffalo, New York. But we are going to mute the audio for a second just so we don't get any copyright claims here on YouTube. Because they're kind of strict about that. They definitely get their panties in a bunch whenever you play music or audio you're not supposed to. Even though they charge people for a YouTube music app, which I still don't understand how you're doing that, YouTube. I still don't understand how you're getting away with this propaganda. But I think I am going to turn on the AC because it is a little bit hot down here right now. So we'll leave that running probably until the first segment break, just so the room can cool off a bit. I do apologize for any ambient noise in the background if it is a little bit louder, or if I have to talk louder for that matter.
Okay, people, we're about to watch an early 80s slasher called Madman, the greatest summer camp movie ever to come out of Staten Island.
Turn up the audio for you guys.
Staten Island, Gone with the Wind. It wasn't filmed in Staten Island, but everybody involved is a Staten Islander, and those are my people. You know, there's 5 boroughs in New York City: Manhattan, Brooklyn, Queens, the Bronx, and then the redneck borough. The part they stole from New Jersey, the part that would rather be in New Jersey. New Yorkers who long to be New Jerseyites. And the reason the Staten Island Ferry is free is that no one would ever go there if it costs money. But all the cops live in Staten Island, all the firefighters live in Staten Island. 90% of the guys named Vinny in the world live in Staten Island. So, my people. And Madman is based on the most famous serial killer legend of Staten Island, which, like all things in Staten Island, is kind of a second-rate, lame legend, but it's our legend. So I'll get to that in a minute. But if you're new to this movie, if you're watching it for the first time, then the only person in the movie that you might recognize is the female lead who plays the character of Betsy, and her name is Galen Ross. However, she's not listed in the credits as Galen Ross. She's listed as Alexis Dubin. It's a fake name. If you ask the producer, Gary Sales, why she used a fake name, you can't ask her because she refuses to be interviewed about this movie. But if you ask Gary, he'll tell you it's because she was a SAG actress. She was a member of the union, and so she was sneaking around trying to avoid, and in this non-union picture, she only had one other movie at the time. She was in Dawn of the Dead. She was the heroine of George Romero's sequel to the classic Night of the Living Dead. So people did know her. I'm using the term people loosely. I mean, people like us knew her, but I don't think you'd have to hide to keep your SAG standing. So she was probably just embarrassed to be making a slasher with all these Staten Island people. Anyway, Galen Ross, Alexis Dubin, whatever, is what's known in slasher films as the final girl. But she's not a typical final girl because of what happens to her and how she acts, which we'll go into later. And if you go on the internet, you'll find people writing essays about how this movie subverts the final girl rules. But if you ask the people who made the movie, they'll say, we didn't know what the rules were. We were just making stuff up. So anyhow, you know what's interesting to me about all the women who carried these early slashers, because nobody really cared whether the lead was a male or a female. It was only later that people would say, great job of putting that strong female character into an exploitation film, is that there's this moment today in every production meeting. I don't care if you're making a movie, a TV show, a YouTube video, a reality show about shark hunting, a 30-second promo for the cat shelter. There's this moment when somebody just blurts out, we need a strong female character for this. Now, I'm not sure why this happens. I'm not sure why little synapse explosions occur in the brains of otherwise intelligent writers, actors, media executives, directors, who 5 seconds before we were talking about production design or cinematography or marketing, probably something deep within their DNA dates from Neanderthal times, and it causes this error message in the left prefrontal cortex because they just blurt out randomly, we need a strong female character for this. And then after they blurt it out, 7 or 8 additional people will then come in with various forms of agreement, as though it's the most natural thing in the world to be ordering a double Western bacon cheeseburger at the Carl's Jr. drive-thru, and you say, oh yeah, give me some of those jalapeno poppers, and also we need a strong female character for this. Because, I mean, sometimes I like to point out to them, we don't need a strong female character for this. We might, in fact, need a weak female character for this particular story. Or more likely, we'll need a complex person for who the words strong and weak are relative or irrelevant because she's a human being. You know, but they say, yeah, we need a young Jodie Foster. Or maybe a young Meryl Streep. Yeah. One thing you never hear is we need a young Marilyn Monroe. You don't hear that. And yet I could go scene by scene through the complete works of Jodie Foster, Meryl Streep, and Marilyn Monroe and make notes in the margins of the script that would read something like this. Strong moment, weak moment. Neither strong nor weak moment. Strong, weak, moderately weak, on and on. Because all 3 of those women have played multiple roles with multiple points of view that can't ever be summed up by the words strong female character or weak female character. You can do the same with male characters. Superman is not interesting unless kryptonite exists, okay? Anyhow, I'm going to take a stab at explaining why this ritual occurs. You know, one is ignorance of the principles of writing scripts, especially the part dealing with characterization. 2 might be posturing for the public Hollywood jury, the Harvey Weinstein syndrome, you know. 3 might be so they can talk about the meeting on Facebook. 4 might be member of the Politburo, and I'm only half joking about that because in the they actually did require strong female characters in the movies. They had script readers who had to approve every film produced, and they would write these lengthy notes saying things like, the character of Svetlana must be altered to remove all evidence that she was derisive toward the 5-year plan of the tractor factory in Novosibirsk. Or the writers are directed to make Olga more representative of the Soviet woman described by Engels, Marx, and Lenin as economically independent and empowered by her participation in the social advancement made possible by the Anti-Fascist Women's Committee. And of course, the Russian screenwriters would all slap their foreheads and go, of course, that's the key that unlocks the whole character. It was that tractor factory subtext all along. I got it now. But see, we don't need communist writers' committees in the United States. We already do all the work in the production meeting. You know, it started in the 90s, I think. They had this whole Go Black movement. You know, I remember going to an audition for the role of a police captain in a TV movie, and when I got to the waiting room, the receptionist said, oh, I'm sorry, you didn't hear? Oh, somebody should have called you. We're going black with this role. Now, that was the first time I had ever heard that phrase. So I said, would you repeat that? And she said, we're hiring an African American for this part. Only African Americans can be interviewed for this part. And what I wanted to say was, wait, is this the same female casting director who is notorious in New York City for bringing actresses to tears by telling them they're too short, too fat, too blonde, too perky, too old, too young, too chubby, too Jewish, too ethnic, too whatever? In other words, pointing out things they have no control over because the script is written that way and the script is sacred. And yes, it was that same woman. Apparently, skin color was the only thing that wasn't sacred in a shooting script. So I'm guessing, but I would imagine there was a production meeting, and at some point in that production meeting, someone said, what we need for this is a strong black character. And 7 other people immediately agreed. And so the director said, tell the casting director, we're going black with that police captain. So I understand the whole multicultural, multi-ethnic universe of certain stories that are rooted in diverse environments like Star Trek. But lately, there's been this aggressive effort to use actors as agitprop signboards, even in stories about mountain men that are in rural Montana or wherever. You know, the producer, they can't argue with them. You know, the director might say, well, no, the mayor of Thornton, Colorado is not transgender in this script. And they go, why not? Why wouldn't it be a better story if the mayor was transgender? I mean, these conversations actually take place, and they take place long after the screenwriter has lost control of his work. He's got a 3-inch Bible of backstory on that Colorado mayor, and he may have spent 9 months perfecting that characterization, but it won't matter because somebody with an axe to grind or a sickle to grind at a production meeting started daydreaming about a transgender plot twist. Fortunately, these things have a way of self-correcting because people who make movies in order to transform society end up dying of brain aneurysms when the Monday morning box office results come out, and Transformers 8 has outperformed their socially relevant stick figures by 9,000%. So watch all those Soviet movies from the 1950s and you'll know what I mean. Better yet, watch that movie last year, Detroit. Remember that movie? Because nobody else watched it. So I think we'll know this is over on some future day when they're having a production meeting at the Public Theater. And the director of Shakespeare in the Park says, okay, we're doing Othello this year, but listen to this. We're going to go white with it. That's when they'll finally decide fake symbolism has run its course. Meanwhile, strong female character Alexis Dubin, known to her friends as Galen Ross, stars in the old familiar story of the summer camp for gifted children. And actually, it's not a summer camp, it's a fall camp. These campers are out there the week before Thanksgiving. So it's a camp for children so gifted, they don't have to go to school at all. It's a camp where a wild-haired, card-playing, sadistic camp director tells the campfire story of Madman Mars, a wife-killing, child-killing, decapitating, axe-wielding mutant farmer in overalls who roams the forests of the Hamptons. Yes, that's what I said. He's out there somewhere around Steven Spielberg's house, menacing members of the Goldman Sachs boardroom. And if you say his name above a whisper, he will come for you. Fortunately for plot development, all the older characters in the film, I assume they're counselors, although it seems like there's 12 counselors and like 4 actual campers. But all the older characters want to do is have sex and go alone into the woods for randomly inane reasons, which is exactly what makes it a supremely satisfying early 80s slasher. So let's get right to it. We have 8 dead bodies, 2 breasts, throat slicing, neck snapping, face ripping, hair dragging, hook impaling, multiple body dragging, axe to the chest, shotgun to the face, young children being terrorized with graphic bloody storytelling, sword in the stone ripoff called Axe in the Stump, excruciating hot tub scene with excruciating musical accompaniment, gratuitous girl talk, heads roll, axe foo, stoner foo, hanging foo, carburetor foo. Drive-In Academy Award nominations for Alexis Dubin as Betsy, the logic-challenged final girl, Tony Fish as TP, the horny, hot-tubbing wise guy, Paul Ehlers as the growling, web-footed, inbred axe killer, and Joe Giannone, the greatest horror director in the history of Staten Island. 3 stars. Joe Bob says, check it out.
3 stars.
And I'll see you at the first break.
3 stars for Mad Men.
The only time I ever go to Staten Island, when somebody comes to New York, they want to see the Statue of Liberty. I want to see the goddamn Statue of Liberty. And so I said, look, you can pay $40. You can stand in line for 3 hours. You can take a crowded tour boat out there. Or we can just walk onto the totally free Staten Island Ferry, which sails right by the Statue of Liberty. You can take all the pictures you want. Then we can take the same ferry immediately back to Manhattan. But you know what happens? We get over to that main town there in Staten Island, and they say, well, maybe we should look around here. Do something in Staten Island before we go back. There's probably stuff to do here. And I have to tell them, nope, there is not. You've pretty much done the most exciting thing you can do in Staten Island, which is you rode the ferry boat over to it. That's it. Unless you want to go to a Staten Island Yankees game, which you don't want to go to a Staten Island Yankees game. Because, give you one example, Scooter the Holy Cow is the Staten Island Yankees mascot. It's a guy in a furry cow suit. You're hoping Madman Mars will come out of left field and lop his head off.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, first segment break coming up. I'm going to turn off the AC. Because I do understand how that can be annoying trying to listen to these episodes and you got the AC running in the back. It does get a little loud. I understand. But we will get back to our watch-along now. Once again, I do want to apologize to everybody on Twitch. Had some issues with the laptop. Stream froze, laptop froze. Had to shut it down, restart it back up. Now we're back here with the watch-along for The Last Drive-In Season 4, 2019. This is Episode 6. Joe Bob watching the movie Madman. First segment break, 21 minutes.
Okay, a lot going on here in the Camp for Gifted Children, which is apparently run by the red-headed, mustachioed Max, who pretty much does all the exposition we're going to need as he talks about how Madman Mars, for no particular reason, went stark raving mad and killed his whole family, and then got strung up on a tree by a lynch mob, but survived and then decided to decapitate as many people as he could. It's the no particular reason part that I don't get. Wouldn't this legend be better if he had a particular reason? So anyway, this is a very loose version of the Cropsey legend of Staten Island. Cropsey was an escaped mental patient who had a hook for a hand, and he would hunt down little children and drag them into the ruins of Seaview Hospital. Now, Seaview Hospital was the derelict tuberculosis place that had been built in 1905 and abandoned sometime in the 1960s. And it had fallen into ruins, and so it was one of those haunted complexes that looked really, really scary. Huge place. It was the biggest tuberculosis hospital in the country back in the 20s and 30s. So apparently enough little children on Staten Island did disappear for the Cropsey legend to be credible. And so when the makers of Madman were looking around for a plot, that's what they chose. And those guys were Joe Giannone and Gary Sales, who were both film students at Richmond College, which is today known as the College of Staten Island. And they wanted to break into the film business, and it was 1980. And the big news in 1980 is that Friday the 13th was an independent film that grossed $60 million. So they decided horror was going to be their ticket into the business, and they collaborated on a script based on the Cropsey legend. And then they went out raising money, and they eventually found this guy, Sam Marion, who was a baby carriage manufacturer, and he put up the whole $350,000 budget. So they're starting to do the casting, and these actors keep coming in, and they're saying, hey, I already read for this part. I read this exact same scene somewhere else. And they said it was almost word for word the same scene as a movie that was already shooting in Buffalo. And so Gary Sales gets freaked out, of course, and he calls up to Buffalo and he finds somebody who knows somebody else who knows somebody else, and they get their hands on the script of the other movie. And it turns out these other filmmakers were also doing the Cropsey legend, but they were way ahead of them. They were already in production. They had a much bigger budget. So Sales and Giannone meet
Shout
up
out
at
to
the
Buffalo.
Curtain Up restaurant. It was a restaurant on 43rd Street in Hell's Kitchen. And I say, okay, we got to change the script so we can still shoot it. And so it's not the Cropsey legend. And so that's what they did. They even had to buy the tablecloth because they wrote so much of the story on it. And the next day, they had a new movie. What they were afraid of, they thought if they did not do that, then Sam Marion was going to take back his $350,000. So anyway, the other movie is The Burning, by the way. I wanted to show the two movies back to back, but we don't have the rights to The Burning right now. So later we'll do that. Paul Ehlers, the guy who plays Madman Mars, he's a horror buff. He from the time he was a child. He's the only movie killer I know who was kind of pissed off that he didn't get featured in Fangoria. He didn't get anything written about him in Fangoria magazine. It bugged him. And he may or may not have looked into the Cropsey legend. I don't think he did, and it didn't matter anyway, because this ain't the Cropsey legend anymore. And the only person to die so far in this story is an old drunk who's in the movie for I don't know what reason. Why did they just throw an old drunk into the movie? I never quite figured it out. But the dead drunk is played by Michael Sullivan, who has been in literally dozens of movies, usually just to get decapitated or otherwise killed in every movie he makes. Usually he's in the movie just so he can get killed. But his real job is he's a prop maker and an animator. And he made what is one of the most amazing short films I have ever seen. It's a motion robot porno movie. And it got him kicked off YouTube because apparently you can't have Barbie dolls copulating with G.I. Joe dolls in group sex scenes.
Yeah, no, unfortunately, YouTube is very strict about shit like that.
On YouTube. So, important warning for you aspiring filmmakers out there. Michael Sullivan in one of his great kill scenes as Dippy the Drunk. Okay, back to the movie. One interesting thing I discovered when I was looking up stuff on this movie, Madman Mars has a MySpace page. I mean, today, Paul Ehlers, who plays Madman Mars, he's on MySpace. And, you know, if I was a deformed serial axe killer in overalls who wanted to post a lot of photos about how I spend my days, I would go for MySpace, you know, not Facebook. Notice the Russians don't create any fake MySpace accounts to meddle in the election. You know, MySpace is what you look at after you discover 47 bodies, you know, and the media goes, well, he told everybody what he was doing. It was right there on MySpace. Why didn't somebody do something? And it's because, well, it was on MySpace. That's why, you know, MySpace is like Seaview Hospital. You know, the last patient left MySpace in 2004, and since then it's just been graffiti-covered ruins, except for Madman Mars.
Next segment break, 31 minutes into the movie Madman.
Okay, let's meet the counselors. I assume the gifted children or something. Max is going off to play cards while the counselors get high, have sex, and play the recorder while randomly canoeing. Max, by the way, is the most accomplished actor in the cast. That's Frederick Newman, even though he's listed in the credits as Carl Fredericks. He was a leading actor in the avant-garde theater group Mabu Mines.
A lot of fake names in this movie.
It's a very famous artsy-fartsy experimental East Village thing in New York, but it gets worse. He was a personal friend of Samuel Beckett of Waiting for Godot fame, and he used to fly to Paris to work with him. So I guess you can see why he used a fake name in this movie. I don't know how many people use fake names in Madman, but quite a few. So I have a few questions. Betsy and TP in that hot tub, are they having sex or just squeezing each other's genitals under the surface of the water in some kind of nasty sadomasochistic ritual? Because they do not seem to be having fun or even particularly like each other. Second, why is the camera circling around them like the Kim Novak, William Holden Halloween dance scene in Picnic? Third, did TP get rewarded with sex because he made that embarrassing public speech about how big of a prick he was? Can you really do that? Does that really work? Fourth, and I don't really want to go here, but when she says, you didn't let me finish, was that underwater oral sex or something else? And if it was something else, do I want to know? And fifth, why would that girl be playing that recorder in a canoe? And sixth, if somebody said, I like to feel the flames devour the wood, is that to show us how stoned he was? Because Gary Sales, the producer and the co-screenwriter, he does admit that he was extremely fond of Panama Red at the time this movie took place. And so I'm wondering, was he at some East Village party where somebody actually said, I like to feel the flames devour the wood? Because I want to invite that person to my next party. Okay, back to the movie. TP, by the way, is played by Tony Fish. That's not his real name either. His real name is Tony Nunziata, but everybody called him Tony Fish because of his day job. He went down to the Fulton Fish Market every morning and picked out the best fish for various restaurants. The restaurants would pay him to be a fish picker, hence the name, and hence his subsequent career as the director of the Sardine Museum and Herring Hall of Fame in Canada. And right now people are going, Joe Bob is just making stuff up. Director of the Sardine Museum and Herring Hall of Fame, where they honor the sardines and the herrings in Canada. Tony Fish ran that show. I would not lie about that. I would also not lie about the fact that he sings that song in the hot tub scene. I don't need words, that song. No, Tony, you don't need words. You do need a song. A sardine or a herring could sing a better song than that song. Maybe there were sardines and herrings in the water of the hot tub. Maybe that's why they had those bizarre expressions. See, we're getting into some deep, serious Staten Island weirdness right here in this part of the movie. We're into some mozzarella and thick hair gel, if you know what I mean, and I think you do. You know, as I said before, those are my people. You know, there's a fine line between mozzarella hair gel people in Staten Island and trailer park deer hunters in Nacogdoches who believe the second coming will happen when North Korea bombs Joel Osteen's megachurch or something. You know, same basic DNA, I'm telling you.
Next segment break, ladies and gentlemen. 4 minutes into the movie Madman.
So much for Seth Jones as the Coleman lantern-toting Dave character, one of the few actors who used his real name, probably because this was his first acting role, so what did he have to lose? And of course we have the iconic TP hanging scene in which Madman Mars jerks TP's monogrammed belt buckle in order to snap his neck and send him into a place where he can never sing another hot tub ballad. That was also the only film role of TP, real name Tony the Fish Nunziata, who was an actor, singer, dancer at Richmond College, along with the director of the film, Joe Giannone, and the producer, Gary Sales. This whole thing was put together with Richmond College alumni. And now let me give you some perspective on Richmond College alumni. New York is the site of one of the most famous film schools in the world, New York University, where almost all the graduates go on to careers of one sort or another. New York is also the site of Richmond College, today known as the College of Staten Island, where in the late 70s they would give people $5,000 just to attend the film school because it was the least famous film school in the world. And today the College of Staten Island has an acceptance rate. You know what acceptance rate is? You know, percentage of people that they accept who apply to go there, like the acceptance rate at Columbia University, which is the other New York school with a film school. Their acceptance rate is 6.6%. So the College of Staten Island acceptance rate is 98%. So kind of a big gap, but it must be a really tough program because the graduation rate at College of Staten Island is 30%. So are you getting the picture of College of Staten Island? So if you graduate from Richmond College with your film degree in the late 70s, early 80s, you're lucky to get a job unpacking the honey buns on the set of Kojak, you know? You got all these Staten Island buddies going, come on, let's stick it to those NYU snobs. Let's get out there and make the next $60 million horror flick, just like those lucky bastards over in Hardwick, New Jersey, ones who made Friday the 13th. They were actually planning to make Madman in the Catskill Mountains, which is where Gary Sales went to summer camp, and he first heard the Cropsey legend, even though it was a Staten Island legend, so that doesn't make sense. But anyway, it took them a long time to raise the money, so by the time they got their budget together, it was too cold to shoot in the Catskills, and they started looking around for something closer to Manhattan, and what they found was this conference center called the Fish Cove Inn in a place called North Sea Harbor in the town of Southampton, way out on the eastern end of Long Island. And it had a big main house and all these cabins, and they could house the cast and crew in the same cabins that they used to shoot scenes, and had woods all around it. And it was close enough to send the dailies into the lab in New York City every day. So since this is one of the few movies ever made that has 100% night scenes, it all takes place in about a 4-hour period from the time of the campfire stories till midnight. Aristotle would be so proud of these people, you know, because they actually did achieve the 3 Aristotelian unities in this movie. And nobody does that, ever. And I'm not going to go into the Aristotelian unities, but oh, hell yes, I am too. Aristotle wrote in the Poetics that a drama should always be unified in three ways. Unity of action, meaning one main action with minimal subplots. A lot of movies achieve that. Obviously, the main action here is Madman Mars is killing people with animal abandon. The second one was unity of place. Almost no movies have this, but this one does. The whole movie takes place at the camp. We have to assume that the creepy old Madman Mars house is right next door to the camp. So one geographical area. And then the third one, that's the hardest one to do, unity of time. Aristotle said the whole story needs to take place in no more than 24 hours. This one takes place in 4 hours. So it's like Aristotle on steroids. All right, that's enough neoclassical Greek theory, but the whole cast and crew lived together. They slept all day, they worked all night, they took their meals together, and apparently they shared that hot tub, which became nasty after a while. They don't really talk about it, but they remember how nasty the hot tub got. And here's what's funny. 30 years after they made the movie, Gary Sales and Paul Ehlers, who plays the madman, went back out to that location and they found that tree, the tree where TP was hanged. And the rope was still there, along with the little metal pulley that they'd used to create the movie magic when he gets hanged. And the camp itself, though, was completely gone. The cabins were demolished. They'd been removed. But TP's demise was memorialized in that tree. Unfortunately, Tony Fish died in 2009, just as the cult was forming for Madman, and Joe Giannone had already died in 2006, so he didn't live to see the love that poured out for his only writing-directing effort. Bunch of Staten Islanders finally honored, but only after they were dead. All right, roll the film. Is Richie still wandering around the woods? I think Richie's still wandering around like a zombie while people go look for him. I like TP's reason for being out there alone. Take Bill and Dave with you, TP. No, Richie is my responsibility. I have to go because, you know, they're stupid and then there's slasher stupid, you know, and it gets worse. Okay, back to the movie. Now I'm going to get flagged for using that Kojak reference, though. You know, Joe Bob, you talk like an old fart. Young people don't know who Kojak is. Well, you know what? They should know who Kojak is. Because you know my motto, right? Google that fucker. You should always just Google that fucker.
Next segment break. 57 minutes into the movie Madman.
Okay, that's the infamous checking the hood decapitation scene. And my only question about that is, have they established earlier in the movie that Stacy is qualified to adjust the throttle linkage on a carburetor? Because, I mean, the ignition won't turn over, so she very quickly gets out and pops that hood. But back in the girl talk scene where they're discussing how undependable men are, shouldn't she have been dropping some gearhead terminology or something? At any rate, important life lesson. Don't look under the hood unless you're damn sure you can go straight to that ignition switch or jigger those battery cables, because Madman Mars could be waiting for that exact moment when your neck is in the perfect position for a whomp, clean decapitation with the front of the hood, leaving your head in the engine proper and your body on the ground. Stacy's reason for being out there alone, by the way, is that she needs to find Billy, quote, at the end of the trail. I don't remember any prior mention of a trail, but I guess that's why she's the only stupid cast member to take a motor vehicle, because she's got to get to the end of that trail. But first she tells everybody else to, quote, go to the office for safety. I don't know where the office is. That's Harriet acting, but stayed in the business as a casting director. And the one memory she had of the movie is that it took them far longer to shoot it than they initially thought. And so all the leaves were turning brown and falling off the trees. And so they were actually spray painting the leaves green and pasting them back on the trees. I guess it was so bad you could see that even at night. My question, though, is where are the kids? What happened to the actual campers? Why is everyone going to, quote, the office? Why aren't they going to wherever the kids are? Do I ask too many questions? Probably. Okay, back to the movie. Oh, man. This movie, if you ask the Madman lovers just why they worship this movie, they'll tell you it's because they remember the video store box, the poster. Yeah, actually, can we see that? Do you have that? Can we call that up? I want to show that. Yeah, okay. See this poster? It's got the silhouette of the madman holding his axe with the wild hair. Well, for some reason, this made them salivate for this movie. But my question is, okay, that makes you buy a ticket or rent the video, but why, after you've actually seen the movie, do you go, oh, one of the great slashers of all time? Because it's kind of not, you know? I mean, well, Joe Bob, because it had that great video box. Well, I know that, but you saw the actual movie. You know, and the video box, that's a piece of artwork. That's a piece of advertising for the... It was just such a great poster, Joe Bob. Well, I know, but that has nothing to do with the movie. It was a silhouette of a madman holding an axe, and he was... You know, there's this certain insanity that rules people who used to hang out in video stores. As Mickey Hargitay once said to Jane Mansfield, great box, baby.
Next segment break, an hour and 13.
Okay, my theory is that even though Madman Mars has to know the little grinning bimbo with the Melissa Manchester hairdo and the dog whistle voice is hiding inside the refrigerator, mainly because she threw all the food all over the floor so there would be no room for her to get in there, he decides, you know what? Sooner or later, she's going to get cold or suffocate, so I'll just wait out here. And besides, Madman Mars is like the luckiest serial killer in history. He has people back up slowly and run into him. Girls he's watching have a limp that slows him down. No matter how slow he walks, he's always faster than the people who don't notice he's around. And by the way, that was Alex Murphy as Bill, whose back gets broken when Madman hoists him aloft. And Alex would go on to a brief career in Polish television. Yes, that's what I said. The role of Madman Mars was cast one day when Gary Sales and Joe Giannone, the producer and director, were talking to Paul Ehlers about working on the design of the poster, because that was Paul's main job at the time. He was an illustrator. So they're having trouble finding somebody to play Madman Mars because they had a lot of big beefy guys coming in for the audition, but they didn't move very well. And it turns out Paul Ehlers was a film buff and a horror lover. He grew up drawing monsters and doing his own comics. And from the age of 8 years old, he and his best friend Kenny would make spy thrillers on Super 8 film. They would go down to JFK Airport with plastic guns. You probably could not do that. But Paul was also a martial artist. So he's explaining to Joey and Gary how he thinks the madman would move. And they say, hey, man, you're 6'5", you're 250 pounds. Why don't you play Madman Mars? And so Paul Ehlers thinks, this is my big shot. And he went from being poster illustrator to deranged half-man, half-animal killer. And he was so serious about it that when he was waiting to shoot his scenes, he would go into his room at the Fish Cove Inn and play the theme to Halloween over and over, trying to become Michael Myers in his mind. And, of course, since he was a designer, they consulted the nose and the eye and the claw feet and the claw hands and the overalls and all the other things that make up Madman Mars, the bumpkin monster from Staten Island. And when they started shooting, Paul Ehlers' wife was not that crazy about him doing the film because she was 8 months pregnant. And then when they got close to the delivery date and they were still shooting, Gary Sales bought him a medical beeper. You know, back in the old analog days when all the beeper could do was beep. You know, no communication on it really. It's just a signal to go somewhere. So Ehlers kept it in his Madman Mars overalls pocket with the understanding that if it started beeping, that meant go to the hospital. So they were shooting a scene where it's a scene where he advances on Richie with the axe. And it was 3 or 4 in the morning. Suddenly the beeper goes off. So Ehlers starts ripping off his costume and he can't find the makeup guy. So he tries to take off the makeup himself, only he does kind of a half-assed job of it. And he jumps into his car and he drives 80 miles an hour to North Shore Hospital. And he's still got blood and creature makeup all over him. And he runs inside and he says, where's maternity? And the guy on duty says, you don't want maternity, you want emergency. But he did get there in time. And his son that was born that day is today a filmmaker himself. Jonathan Ehlers recently directed a mob movie called Ink and Steel. Anyway, when the movie finally came out, Paul Ehlers was all excited because he was a subscriber to all the monster magazines, the horror fan magazines, and he got upset because of the terrible coverage they got. Practically nothing in Fangoria practically ignored by everyone else. There was only this one guy down in Texas who noticed the movie and praised the movie, talked about Paul, newspaper guy named Joe Bob Briggs. All right, back to the movie. I think Paul was hoping Madman Mars would become like a Jason or something, you know. But it's almost like they couldn't decide whether he was human or animal, because he looks like a Sasquatch or maybe a Morlock from the Time Machine. You know, he's got that grunt like a pig thing. He's always making animal noises. There's probably some Leatherface influence in there somewhere. Gary Sales, by the way, says he got the name Mars from constantly listening to The Planets, which is a 7-movement orchestral suite by Gustav Holst. Who cares? Why am I telling that story? The number of people watching this show who would also attend the Gustav Holst Festival, 3. And that's only because they're forced to do it by their husbands, you know. Anyway, Madman Mars never attained the status of Freddy Krueger or Michael Myers or Jason, and Paul Ehlers became a fantasy knife designer. Yes, that's what I said, a fantasy knife designer. I'm not going into anything else about that because this is already way too random. So, if you're wondering what a fantasy knife is, okay, that would be like something Conan the Barbarian would bequeath to his infant son, right? It would have eagles and snakes and spouting geysers and stuff on it, and it'd be curved like a scimitar, used to disembowel an evil Turk. Fantasy knife. That'll be $6,000, please.
And this is after the end credits.
Lore of the campfire telling of his horror. I love that. I love that. John, did you bring your guitar?
Always.
You wouldn't happen to know the Madman Mars end credits theme song, would you?
Who doesn't? But actually, the name of this tune is The Legend of Madman Mars.
Really?
Yeah.
Lore of the campfire telling of his horror, lost in the woods with the madman and the stars. Don't laugh at the tale, heed if you call him. The legend lives, beware the madman Mars. The legend lives, beware the madman Mars. Take it, John.
Lord of the campfire,
Lore of the campfire, telling of his horror, lost in the woods with the madman and the stars. Don't laugh at the tale, heed if you call him. The legend lives, beware the madman Mars. The legend lives, beware the madman Mars.
He's real.
Whatever you think of the movie, you gotta love that theme song. So Betsy the Blonde, the final girl, the character we're supposed to identify with, she's impaled on a meat hook in a direct ripoff of the Pam on a meat hook scene in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and then everything burns up except Richie. And that's, of course, Galen Ross as Betsy, working under the fake screen name Alexis Dubin, even though her birth name is Gail Rosenblum. So we got many levels of deception here. But the important thing to know about Betsy is that she sees a dead body on the floor. The phone works. She dials the phone, but she doesn't call the police. She calls Max and says, there's blood everywhere. And then she loads the children into the bus, starts driving away, fights off Madman Mars's attempts to break into the bus, turns the keys over to another guy, tells him to drive to the police station, but meanwhile she's going to go fight Madman Mars herself alone. And oh yeah, almost forgot, she also blows the head off Ellie, who has already been stabbed in the chest by the madman. I saw a guy ask Gary Sales one time why the final girl gets killed. Is it because she had sex in the hot tub with TP because the final girl is supposed to be virginal? And Gary just kind of went, yeah, I guess, no. You know, it's 1981. There are no final girl rules. Anyway, Galen Ross was only in 3 movies. This one, she was the heroine in Dawn of the Dead. She was Leslie Nielsen's adulterous wife in Creepshow. So quite a resume, but she doesn't really want to talk about this movie because in later life, she became an award-winning documentary filmmaker working for PBS and the BBC and A&E and the Learning Channel, Channel 4 in England, Israeli television network. So not really the kind of places you want to go watch your hot tub scene with TP before you go in for the pitch meeting. You know, she has several semi-famous films, including Dealers Among Dealers, which is about the New York diamond business. Blood Money, which is about the Nazi gold bullion that ended up in Swiss banks, and Killing Kastner, which is about the Jewish rescuer Rezo Kastner. He negotiated with Adolf Eichmann for the lives of thousands of Jews. So she became a pretty serious filmmaker and still is. Has a movie coming out this year called Beijing Spring. So wonderful career. Just don't let her handle a shotgun. And the other veteran of Mad Men to have an impressive career is Stephen Horlick, the composer. He would win a Grammy for writing the theme song of the PBS show Reading Rainbow with LeVar Burton, a song later covered by Chaka Khan, if you can believe that. Stephen did the all-electronic score for Mad Men on a Moog synthesizer. And, of course, we'll always remember Stephen for the three-note Madman riff, which we hear every time the madman is in the vicinity of a doomed cast member. And it actually sounds to me like something you would hear in a wacky, lighthearted cop show, Police Academy or something. But there you are. It's sacred to us because it's Madman. So the movie came out in 1982, but unfortunately, baby carriage manufacturer Sam Marion never got his $350,000 investment back because the distribution company went bankrupt. And that may also be why there was never a sequel. Although they're talking about one now, actually. They're talking about three movies. One is a reimagining written by Gary Sales. Gary says he's trying to get Quentin Tarantino to play Max. So good luck with that one, Gary. Another is a sequel called Hunting Mars. And yet a third is a 3D prequel. A 3D prequel, yes, that's what I said, called 30 Moons to Madness. They did set it up for a sequel, I think, because the very last shot of the movie, where Richie says, Madman Mars, he's real. That was Tom Candela as Richie, also working under a fake name, Jimmy Steele. And the idea was that Richie would be blamed for all the murders. And then people could still believe that Madman Mars was not real. And so he would live to roam the woods again. All right, I think that's enough Madman lore for one night. Darcy, come over here. Save me.
Darcy, the lovely male girl, ladies and gentlemen. Round of applause for Darcy.
What is wrong with you? I love Mad Men. It's like a really fun 80s slasher.
Don't you think Betsy is a bimbo?
Yeah, and I love her.
Okay, what do you got for me?
This is an email from...
Doesn't look like an email.
It is an email from Karen Mitchie of Paisley, Scotland.
Oh, great. I love the Scots. Those are my people.
I thought you said Staten Island people are your people.
Darcy, at some point you need to study the migration patterns of the redneck people. We're all over. All right. Greetings from Glasgow, Scotland. You said he was from Paisley, Scotland.
That's what his address was.
All right. From the Paisley neighborhood of Glasgow, I discovered yourself and your work via the Shockwaves podcast. Great interview. And I immediately searched the internet for all the Monster Vision I could consume. Love the drive-in totals. I ordered Profoundly Disturbing. That's my book. I have a book called Profoundly Disturbing. I just wanted you to know that you've gained a fan across the pond in Scotland, and I cannot wait to tune into Shudder this coming Friday. Oh my God. Oh, what's the date on this? What's the date on this email?
July 8th.
Oh man, big surprise for this guy, I bet. Okay. And then he goes, have you ever visited Scotland? Are there any particular films set or shot in Scotland you're a fan of? Have a fantastic day. I hope you benefit in every way possible from your work with Shudder. My best, Karen Mitchie. You know what's cool about this letter? The name Cairn. Because doesn't that mean one of those burial grounds where they stacked people up and put rocks on top of their bodies when the Vikings came to slaughter them? You know, talk about a horror name. His parents named him after a mass grave, so very cool. Anyway, yes, I've visited Scotland more than once, mostly the parts north and west of Glasgow. Oban, if you know Oban, and those islands where the runes are. What are runes? I don't remember, but they had runes there. Whatever island is owned by Genesis, you don't think of Phil Collins as a sheep farmer, but there he is. He has his own island with runes and goats on it. And and I remember there's a loch up there, Loch Awe, like shock and awe. It's not as famous as Loch Ness or Loch Lomond, but one of those lakes that are 97 miles deep and they roar like Madman Mars. When you get up close to them, there's roar. There's probably snakes in there. Anyway, yeah, I love that place. And damn, Karen, we really hosed you guys in the UK when we did the marathon last summer. They buy the rights to these movies, and then some of them are okay for export, and some of them are like, no, you can't show that in Wales. That would violate our contract with Joe Calzaghe's cable company or whatever. So anyway, we're working on getting Last Drive-In ready for export, which would make it even more awesome than it is today. And but right now, we can't even do Canada right. So we're not even thinking about England. You go to Europe all the time, right?
Not all the time.
I mean, but you work over there. I mean, get one of your friends over there to fix this situation, because we get these letters all the time.
I'll get right on that for you.
You think the Joe Calzaghe reference probably went over everybody's head? Because greatest light heavyweight who ever lived from Wales.
Good to know.
He beat Bernard Hopkins at Madison Garden when he was really old too. Cool. You have no idea what I'm talking about, do you? He also beat Roy Jones Jr. Okay, guy goes into a dive bar. He notices a large jar on the counter. It's filled to the brim with $10 bills. There's got to be thousands of dollars in the jar. Okay, so the guy asks the bartender, what's up with this jar? And the bartender says, well, you pay $10, and if you pass 3 tests, you get all the money in the jar. And the guy says, well, what are the 3 tests? And the bartender says, I can't tell you. You got to pay first. So the guy forks over $10, and the bartender puts it in the jar. And he says, okay, here's what you need to do. First, you have to drink that gallon of pepper tequila, the whole thing, all at once. Second, there's a pit bull chained up out back tooth with your bare hand. And third, there's a 90-year-old woman upstairs who has never had an orgasm. You got to give her an orgasm. So the man is stunned. He says, okay, but no, I know I paid the $10, but no, I'm not doing any of that. I'm not an idiot. The bartender says, okay, your call. So the guy has a few drinks, then he has a few more drinks. He keeps thinking about that money. Finally, he says, where's that tequila? And the bartender slides that gallon jar down to him, and he grabs it with both hands, and he downs it in about 20 seconds. Tears are streaming down both cheeks. The guy has a couple more drinks. He's still thinking about that money. So after a while, he gets up from the bar and he staggers out the back door where the pit bull is chained up. Suddenly, everybody in the bar hears this hellacious scuffle out back. There's barking, there's growling, the guy's screaming, the pit bull is howling, and then suddenly there's silence. They wonder if the guy's dead. About then, he staggers back into the bar. His shirt's ripped, these bloody scratches all over his body. And he says, okay, now, where's the woman with the sore tooth?
Damn.
And he says, okay, now, where's the woman with the sore tooth?
Damn.
Okay. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Ladies and gentlemen, ghosts and goblins, witches and wizards, vampires and werewolves, that is going to do it for our stream tonight. We will be back another time for more episodes of The Last Drive-In with Joe Bob. Until then, peace, God.